there's something fascinating about the way that you're making the music, about the frequencies, and although I do play music and are tired, like I don't quite understand it. I thought that was kind of interesting, and I think people are picking up on it, that there's something special in it, not only in the content of it, but also the frequency of it too. So if you can explain that, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely at first, it took us a few years to really grasp the concept of this whole thing. And it was something we kept coming across for years, just little, people would bring it up or we'd find something online about it. And basically, all instruments are tuned to a certain frequency. Like when you tune a piano, our standard tuning is 440 hertz for
Yeah, like
A4.
yeah.
Yeah. And so,
The note A,
yes,
sorry.
the note A.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we started reading a little bit about like, some people choose 432 hertz for A, some people choose 444 hertz for A, and just kind of citing different studies of like some healing benefits, how it's like more harmonious with the earth and with our bodies, and how, everything's vibrating, all of our molecules and everything. And so, yeah, so we started doing more research and we really kind of landed on the 444 hertz. Just we saw how it's like more, they say harmonious with just all of creation, but also it just sounds really pretty. And so
Yeah.
I guess a lot of like classical, before, music wasn't actually standardized to 440 for the standard tuning until the 20th century. So I guess a lot of orchestras and things would have their own tuning forks back in the day that were different hertz rates. And a lot of people like 444. So
Yeah, it was only standardized in it was sometime in the 1940s, I think, early 1940s, that a bunch of people got together and they said, "This is going to be our standard tuning now." And there's also some disputes of like how that all went down and everything, but we actually believe that the 440 hertz is like in that tuning is more just not in sync with our bodies and how frequencies hit us, because you think about everything's technically made up of frequencies and vibrations, like even solids like rocks or anything like that, but our bodies absolutely are. And how frequencies run through water is a really interesting study as well too, because it actually goes faster through water. Our bodies are made up of like 70 to 80% water. So you have to realize like how that's going to affect our bodies, having these frequencies that we listen to all the time, whether you're in your car or watching a movie or whatever it is. And so, yeah, we just, as she was saying, we kind of kept learning about it, and then we put it on a shelf because we just didn't really fully grasp it, and we were kind of like, I don't know. We just would learn a little, another nugget here and there, and then eventually it just kind of unfolded more and more to us. We were like, okay, well, after our first album, we were just like, why don't we just start recording all of our music in this way? So pretty much that essentially just means we tuned my guitar or our keyboards, or I produce our music, so I turn everything in that's stock sounds in Logic is what I produce on, to be tuned into 444 hertz, and that whole tuning, you just put it into 444 and it makes your C would be like 528 hertz and things like that too. Sorry, this gets a little
oh
technical,
no,
but
that's great.
but
Oh,
yeah.
I love
So
it. You guys,
anyways.
yeah, you guys are living in the future.
Yeah, it's I mean, we could talk about it for hours, but it's in a nutshell, yeah, that's basically, the backstory of why we started doing it. And we started tuning all of our music to 444 for A in 2021. So everything from then on is tuned that way. And then the cool thing about that too is like that makes C hit 528 hertz, which is said to be like a very healing frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, it's kind of interesting to think that when you start playing music, you're just kind of playing around, or you got your few chords, and you're like, okay, this is good, but but then you evolve to this, which seems kind of complicated, but it's also kind of neat. It's sort of, I guess, in the same way you evolve from the children's books to the
Right.
the books we read now, right? Mhm. And you
Yeah.
hope you get to the smart philosophical books, right?
That's right.
Well, it is fascinating when you start digging into music. There's so much science behind it. And so, man, it's just mind-blowing how it all fits together and it like affects everything. I mean,
Yeah.
even plants grow better when you play music for them. It's so
Right.
interesting.
And it's yeah, there's been some really cool studies done on that, just having plants in one room versus another and playing music. And it also kind of depends on the style of music a lot of times too, if we found. But uh, I honestly I love all kinds of music myself. But yeah, it's interesting with some of the studies they've done with some of this, and I can't vouch for all of the things that you read out there, and it's kind of hard to find some of the true things nowadays because honestly, when we first started looking at this about um, I don't know, 5 to 7 years ago, there wasn't that much information out about it. And then nowadays, it's like just been bombarded. Like you type in 528 hertz or 444, and it's just there's all kinds of stuff on it now.
I think people are getting really more curious about the potential power of like healing tones and things for our bodies, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, but yeah, things like a bee's wings buzz at like 528 hertz, which is really interesting. So you can find like this hertz rate in a lot of things that are just naturally existing around us already, which we love that, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. Well, and then also now there's the the connection of the spiritual aspect of this, but there is
Right.
sort of a bit that goes back to the Bible, isn't it?
Yeah, we believe so. There's different people. Sorry, I'm kicking the tripod here. Different people have kind of tried to trace this back to ancient things, and whether it's like archaeology or in Bible texts and things. Some people think that the Levites would have tuned their instruments back in the Old Testament to, like, they call this the key of David, and they think that it would have been the tuning that they used back then. And so they kind of reference like when David played for Saul, back in the Bible times when Saul was really distressed, it like calmed him. And this tuning is actually said to relieve anxiety and stress and things like that nowadays. So it's pretty cool to see that there might be a connection there. And then I also read at one point that somebody found really ancient instruments from BC times, and they could tell that they were tuned to this kind of tuning. So yeah, that would be really fascinating.
And something else that's interesting, biblically speaking, because we love reading the Bible, that's just who we are. But when you look into that, some of the frequency stuff, they were instructed back in Moses's time with like the Levitical law and all that to not wear certain fabrics together and things like that. But they've come to find that the fabrics they said that were said not to be worn together nowadays when we look at the frequencies, because these fabrics actually do emit a frequency on our bodies, that what was it?
Like cancel each other out. Yeah, linen and if you mix them,
they're like conflicting and actually not good for your body to wear those together, which is interesting.
Really fascinating to see that now that we have more science to actually measure those things.
Yeah. So yeah, there's all kinds of interesting studies there for sure.
Yeah. Well, and then the great part too is of course there's a lot of great Christian music out there, but we're not hearing as much as sounding kind of like what you're doing right now, which is kind of cool,
Oh,
and
thank you.
yeah, and of course with the music in there, the message is really important, and I think the message now is probably more important than ever, right?
Yeah, I mean, we think so. That's why we're trying to, put it out there and do our best with it. We actually grew up not listen. We grew up on old hymns when we were growing up in the church and everything, but something that we always loved, both of us apart from each other, because we didn't know each other until we were 21 or 2, something like that. It's 22, and we both loved indie music and all kinds of different music. Like I grew up on classic rock and all that kind of stuff with my parents, and I love blues, so I incorporate that into a lot of our music with lead solos and things like that,
Yeah, we really both. It's funny because we both grew up Christian, but we didn't grow up on Christian music mainstream at the time. For whatever reason, I guess our parents just didn't like it or something. I don't know. So we did grow up with some of the more mainstream music influences, and I think you can kind of hear that in some of our music, like you said, the blues, and like we always liked the Beatles growing up, so that was kind of like a part of our influences for sure. So
yeah,
maybe that's why we sound different.
Yeah, it's kind of a broad spectrum for sure, but yeah, we want to make music, especially for just Christian music, that kind of delves into a different territory than most Christian music does. and don't not necessarily have the same sound that a lot of the music that you hear out there does in this day and time. And yeah, we just try to play things that we would like to enjoy listening to,
Yeah. Well, and part of that is, being able to influence other people. And I think that people will look up to what you're doing, and I know that they do. So what kind of advice do you give to those artists that are, that are wanting to follow in your footsteps and make great music, and maybe at a certain frequency too?
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be neat to just be able to encourage other artists to not feel like they have to fit into a certain mold or do what's been done.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to be like true to what they feel like God is working in them to do, because I feel like, we can have all this inspiration, but if we like water it down or try to sound like somebody else, maybe you don't get that like pure inspiration that it started with. So it's really cool to develop your own sound
Yeah.
with God and to pursue what he's like working in you, I would say.
Yeah, don't feel like you have to fit into the same mold or box that everyone else does. Or even in any way, really, just like if you don't need to feel like you have to follow anybody else's recipe or the way that it's already being done, because there's so much that still is yet to be done. And I know a lot of people think like, oh well, what kind of new music can you really make, because it's only so many chords you can play, and so much of it, like so many years of music have already been done. But honestly, like, there's still new music coming out all the time, and
Oh yeah.
people have their own expression of music from depending on whoever it is. It's like everybody has their own expression, which is really cool. So don't be afraid to be who you are and let that come out, and not try to sound like someone else does.
Yeah, well said. My co-host is Drew Pearson, one of our great Dallas Cowboys. Caught the Hail Mary, went in the Hall of Fame. So the Hail Mary term is
Awesome.
funny on both ends. But
That's
but
awesome.
we love to ask people their Hail Mary moment, which is that moment in your life or career. Just to go for it, and it worked out for you. And I'm so sure. I'm not. At this point, what do you suppose that is for you? Are you deciding to play music, or what would it be?
Hmm. That's a good
Yeah.
question. I feel like I don't know, putting out one of our latest song, or almost our latest song, except for the Christmas song, but our song I Shall Not Want, we just put that out last year, and I just feel like that song we really tried something new that we hadn't really done before. It's like all the words came pretty much straight from a psalm in the Bible, and we just really went for this style that we really wanted to make, and didn't try to do anything for anybody else, just what we really felt inspired to do. And it was
Mm.
cool to see how that really resonated with people.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Would you say that I guess you're on the same team, so it's a similar
Yeah.
You can have a different opinion.
Honestly, no, I mean, like, yeah, that's pretty much my answer to on all of it. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's pretty much.
I guess we've had several leaps where we took like a leap of faith in our career.
Yeah.
It's like you didn't know how it would turn out, but it turned out, and it was cool to see.
I've played music for a long time now. Like, I think I've been playing. I started doing the local small gigs, and I did that for years and years, and over a decade, easy. And then it's funny just to see the progression, because you see movies a lot of times, and it's not really how it ever plays out. In the movies, it's like, oh, somebody came up and sang because the singer wasn't there, and then suddenly they're famous. It doesn't hardly ever work out that way.
Yeah,
it's a lot of
overnight success. They
Yeah.
say. Yeah.
It's a lot of hard work and dedication, and not people not showing up to your shows, so many years of it. And honestly, if you listen to any of the documentaries of like the bands that made it huge and everything, they'll tell you the same thing for the most part. Like, they played for years and years, and they would have 10 people show up, and it was just like, oh man. And then somehow you just start getting this break, and it's just kind of a lot of times kind of a slow build until it hits this threshold, and then it really starts lifting off. And I think that it's not necessarily that how skilled a musician you are sometimes, because you see people that have incredible skill that aren't known still. but it really is just kind of all of the things coming together at once that kind of make it happen, and sometimes just being in the right place at the right time kind of deal. You know, it's interesting with uh, like how things have started moving for us ever since this last song. It's not like we have increasingly gotten better with our production and our songwriting and all of that, but it wasn't just like, oh, all of our other stuff before that was just garbage, you know. It was just,
Something just hits, you know.
yeah,
It's like the right song at the right moment for what people want to hear and how people are feeling. And yeah, it's just kind of interesting how it hits sometimes.
absolutely. But
Mm.
the Hertz rate stuff is really interesting because we actually have even talked about that before, and it seemed like nobody really cared. So we're like, okay. And then we just happened to do a post on Instagram one day after we'd already put our I Shall Not Want song out. I think it had been out for like a week or two, right?
I don't remember.
I can't even remember. It wasn't too long after. But then it just kind of took off. And sometimes things just get wings and just go. So it's
Yeah.
funny how that works.
Yeah.
It sure is. Well, you know, and the funny part about that is we talk about that on the shows, that success mindset that you have to have, whether or not
Mhm.
you're feeling it or not, or, you know, as creative types, we're often hard on ourselves, but also, you know, there's something that kind of keeps us going. And, you know, maybe it's the
Mhm.
faith, but is there something that you tell yourself that kind of keeps you on that right path, even when it is tough, or when the songs aren't coming or the chords aren't right?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I like you said, I think faith is a big part for us, just trusting that like this is God's plan for us and just to keep pushing forward. But honestly, we just
Yeah.
feel like both of us just feel like driven
Yeah.
to keep going. And I think some people just have that drive. And so I would say like Phil's got an insane like just laser focus about music and he loves it so much and I do too. And so you put us both together and we love it. So every
Yeah.
day we're kind of excited to work on something.
Well, you know,
But we have our challenges for sure.
you're definitely gonna any artist honestly is gonna have naysayers. They're like,
Mhm.
that's just idiotic that you're even trying to make a living doing art, you know. But you know, if you get past that, you have to shut off those voices that are just telling you you can't do all these things. And
Mhm.
then once you
Yeah.
press past that, which honestly is a continual thing because there's always going to be people that come at you like that. But if you're able to like really just not let those things get ingrained into you and you do just keep pushing forward, um, then you know it's something that you got to do it for the love of doing it too.
Mhm.
But if you're doing something that you love, then aren't you already successful? I mean, I think that's like a huge thing right there. Is just
Yeah.
I just love music, and there's so many times I could have easily quit because it just got so hard, but it's like my favorite thing to do. So
You would have come back
Mhm.
around in like a week or something,
yeah,
right?
probably.
Yeah.
After quitting.
That's so cool. And so now you get to travel around, you know, in the van, you know, with the kids, and like it's a whole family affair. So that's also going to be one of the great joys, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's really fun. And honestly, it's been cool to see our kids. So we have three kids and you know, they've been around music and travel like their whole lives. And so already our 2-year-old son, you know, we sit him down. He loves the drums. He's really drawn to the drums. He'll sit behind the drum set. It's like a full-size drum set. And he'll like start playing a beat and it's
it's
pretty
actually a
good
good
for
beat.
2 years old.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy to see like to see some of these things come out of them at a young age just because they've just had it. It's how they grew up, you know.
Yeah.
So it's neat to see that.
I never had instruments like that growing up. I didn't get my first guitar until I was 15, and
Yeah.
just to have that at their disposal, I think would be amazing, honestly.
Yeah. Well, hey, they might be your new band members at some point,
You
Right.
right?
never know, right?
Just give him a few years.
Yeah. Well, and you know, and also it's yeah, you guys are going to be the cool parents, you know, growing up.
I hope
So
so.
yeah.
We'll
Oh,
see how they feel, you know, in their teenage years and everything.
yeah, I saw a funny interview with you know, it was about Lenny Kravitz's daughter. What's her name? Can't
Zoe.
think of her name
Mhm.
right now.
Yeah,
Zoe,
Zoe,
Yeah.
yeah.
that's it. Yeah.
And it was like, you know, they were interviewing her. I think she was maybe a teen at the time, but they're like, "Isn't it so cool that your dad is Lenny Kravitz?" She's like, "Yeah, I wish he would stop wearing so many see-through shirts though." Like
Yeah. Yeah.
he was like too cool, you know.
But I mean,
Yeah. I
everybody from
remember
the
that.
outside, we all think Lenny Kravitz
We're
is the
like,
coolest, you
Lenny
know?
Kravitz is the
Yeah.
man. But it's funny when it's your parents, you know.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah. And like there's you know people say to my kids, "Oh, your dad's cool. He's got the coolest son." And they're
Yeah, it's
like,
funny.
not impressed.
Right. Yeah.
It's just normal. It's just normal
We're
for
used to
them.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so
So
cool.
like,
So when is this van rolling around to Texas? Are we going to get you guys
man, that'd be
back?
fun.
Oh, you know, we're in the excuse me, we're in the process process of recording and finishing out our second album right now. And we have some things that we're working on behind the scenes right now, but I think probably sometime this year we'll probably be getting out and about, hopefully, and we'll be able to. I don't know where all we'll go, but I think Texas will be on the docket at some point. Obviously, Dallas is one of the places you got to go, right? So
Yeah,
We'd love to
course.
book a good tour this year, so we're piecing it together behind the scenes, kind of putting the pieces together that will lead up to it.
yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I was going to ask about the new music, but there it is. So we got a new album coming. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're really excited about this one. I think it's you know, just the progression of from where our first album was, which we're actually going to. Am I allowed to talk about that?
Yeah, you
Okay.
can hear it first.
Yeah, we haven't told anybody this, but we're going to re-release our first album that wasn't in 444 hertz, and that hertz rate now.
Yeah,
So
we retuned, remixed, remastered the entire album track by track. And so we're gonna put that out because the fans kept asking us, like, can you put your first album out in 444? We were like, I don't know, should we? And so it's kind of been our project this winter, has been working on that a little bit. And
Yeah.
then we're gonna put that out as well, and then put out the second album. So it'll be fun. We'll have a lot of stuff coming for
lots of new music coming.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And so are you noticing a big difference in it, or the feeling of it?
You know what's amazing? Okay, so we were listening back and forth, just listening to the masters, like, do we like how this all came out? And I was sitting in the car listening to all of them on the car speakers, because we like to do the car test, as they say. And I didn't notice a huge difference until I went from the 444 new mix back to the old one. I was like, oh man, it just like hit me differently. I felt like let down when I put on the old one. And it wasn't like it sounded bad. I could just feel like it didn't feel as harmonious with me somehow. It's hard to describe it, but the 444 really felt better.
Something we decided to do was, instead of just replacing all of our old songs that are already on all the streaming platforms and everything, is to just leave those there so that people can compare them and listen to the remake of the album and listen for themselves as well, to see what hits them better, kind of thing.
It'll be a study.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. That's so cool. Well, we're going to tell everybody to check this out, both versions of it, and then we can't wait to hear the new music, and can't wait to see you on tour. And really appreciate what you're doing, and doing something different, something so cool. And we tell everybody to check it out.
Awesome. Thanks,
so
Paul.
Much. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for being with us, and look forward to seeing you guys in person sometime soon.
Yeah, sounds
great.
Yeah.
Look forward to it. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you both so much. Okay, bye-bye.
All right, bye.